Okay, Mark, it's been a busy week for the football club. There are a lot of questions out there, and our job this morning is to try and answer those. It's been a very turbulent week, obviously, a lot of things going on. Could you explain in your mind what has taken place over the last week or so?
Well, it's over obviously this week. Steve has left the football club. That happened, as we were all aware, on Monday. It was a decision that certainly wasn't taken lightly by the board of Kidderminster Harriers. It was a decision that was unanimous by the board of Kidderminster Harriers, and it was felt that the change was needed in the best interests of the club moving forward, with their sole aim to get into the Football League this year.
What was the basis of that decision?
Well, I think we're all fair enough to say that since the start of November, there was definitely a change within the club, with the events that led up to, and with Steve going to speak to Forest Green Rovers about their vacant manager's position. And I felt that we've all tried to, including Steve, all tried to get over that and to try to move forward as a club, and that was the way we felt it was the best way to go at the time. We're a results-driven business, and I think it's fair to say that we haven't had the success that we felt we would have as regards the league form in that period, and that has contributed to the decision that was made with regards to Steve.
Aside from anything else, were the results the most important factor?
There are other factors that obviously going to affect the decision, and I think that's information, and that's what the board of directors are there to do. It's not a decision that's been taken lightly. I understand that Steve has done a tremendous job for this football club, and although I wasn't involved in his selection process when he came to the club, it's fair to say that the club is in a much better position now than it was when Steve joined the club, in my opinion. And Steve is not just solely responsible for that, but has a great influence on of obviously what's happened on the field of play, and must be congratulated for that.
Obviously, Steve was a very popular manager. In choosing to take the decision that the board has taken, what was that taken into consideration?
Certainly was taken into consideration. Sometimes in life, the easiest thing that we could have done as a board was to have done nothing and left the situation as it was. Sometimes in life, in business, we have to make difficult decisions. People may perceive that there's a certain risks, and there's risks in every decision that you make. But ultimately, the board of directors have decided to take the course of action that has been agreed unanimously, with a view to Kidderminster Harriers focusing on solely promotion to the Football League this season.
Why did you choose to take the decision at the time you did, having reached the sort of agreement that was what you were going to do? The timing of it, why did it take place when it did?
Well, there's never ever going to be a good time for this sort of decision to be made. There's plenty of probably conspiracy theories about reasons why. It's purely because, looking at the results that we've had since the start of November to where we are now, we probably haven't taken as many points as we would have liked to have taken. It was felt that in hindsight, maybe, and everybody is beneficiaries from hindsight, that if we'd have had the chance again, that things would have been different, and maybe this decision would have been taken earlier. But it wasn't. But ultimately, we've done it at what we consider is the best time for us as a club to move forward.
Obviously, there is a process which the club and Steve have had to go through and are still completing, and that for those reasons it is private and confidential to an extent. Can you able to tell me if the club is disadvantaged financially or otherwise in having to take that decision, because Steve obviously was a contracted employee of the club?
Whilst there is a belief, obviously, that Steve was employed by Kidderminster Harriers on a contract to the end of May 2016, and therefore the club has had to pay an awful amount of settlement figures, probably in excess of 6 figures. That is not the case. I can say the club and Steve have reached an amicable solution in terms which are obviously confidential and cannot be disclosed. But the supporters who expressed that the concerns that maybe we have to sell a player or the club's in financial difficulties because of this course, that is untrue. Steve's departure from the club, although it's a confidential matter, nothing could be further from the truth to say that the club is needing to sell a player to pay for Steve's departure.
Why then Andy Thorn as manager for Kidderminster Harriers? His passion for the position obviously is evident. That's been clear for everyone who's come into contact with him in his first few days of the job. But why was he the man for the board?
When Steve Burr asked for the permission to speak to Forest Green Rovers, I think it's fair to say that I, the board of directors, and probably quite a lot of supporters expected Steve to be offered the job at Forest Green Rovers. And obviously that's a point when you're starting to think about the attributes that you would ideally want in a person to move the club forward. And we went through those in my mind. We've been going through that process of people. And what we wanted was somebody who was totally professional in everything that they did. Somebody who had been involved with football at the highest level, who could bring those professional traits to us at Kidderminster Harriers. Somebody who had a huge attention to detail with regards to training, fitness, preparation, detailed preparation for each and every game. And I suppose most importantly, somebody who had the hunger and the desire, that burning in your belly, to make it a successful transition, to take this club forward. That's what I wanted, that's what I've been trying to achieve, that's what the board has been trying to achieve. And I think those are the key things that sort of we were looking for. In my mind, I mean, we all have candidates' names that people throw at you, people that you think, and it's fair to say that Andy was not somebody that initially we felt was, thought of, because it was probably a little bit left field.
As in, others might not have thought of him, whereas you quite clearly did think of him quite quickly.
Well, in the initial circumstances, I mean, I never knew Andy Thorn. But once I was talking to professional people within the game, people whose opinions I respect, it became clear that this was a man who may have these traits, and it was obvious that it was important for me to meet and talk to Andrew. As soon as I met him, I have to say it, I was blown away, completely blown away, because looking at his playing career, he has played at the highest level. Looking at his coaching career and his scouting career, he has been at the highest level of football within this country. An added advantage is his contact book, which would give many people within the game know Andy. His desire to succeed after the difficult circumstances he had when he was at Coventry City was very, very apparent, and I was blown away, to be perfectly honest.
Does that explain, these sorts of appointments, as in the time frame, aren't unheard of, but it is quite often the case that clubs will wait a great deal of time. They will go through an in-depth selection process, hold a number of interviews. Obviously, as soon as the decision was taken to change manager, he was the man you wanted. Is that the reasoning, that's how this has worked, rather than taking perhaps a little bit more time?
I think whichever way you go, you take a certain amount of criticism. I've only got to look at my professional team, if you like, my Premier League team at the time was Wolverhampton Wanderers, and you only got to look at what happened there when Mick McCarthy went, and the process that they decided was the best way forward for them, and ultimately it didn't work. I think we thought, and the club needed a leader sooner rather than later, and it was just the sheer enthusiasm, desire to succeed, professionalism that came across when meeting Andy that made me feel straight away this was the man that I believe is the man to take us into the Football League.
He is obviously very excited by the challenge, as you would be, has only interests and eyes in getting the club promoted. So with that in mind, is it important to you now that, regardless of the events of this week and the opinions that some people have, that the most important thing is to get behind him, his staff and his team?
Of course. I think it's unfair to actually blame Andy, his staff or anybody else associated with the decision. You know, he's excited to take that position. Yes, I'm sure, as there is in every big decision within a football club or any business, there is an element of risk. That decision was taken by the directors. I am ultimately chairman of the directors, and the responsibility for the decision should fall fairly and squarely on my shoulders. That's not Andy's fault, but I would like everybody, to give Andy, his team of people, that opportunity to take the club forward. Just knowing, and I'm only aware of one training session that Andy has taken yesterday, and the belief is the whole place was buzzing after it, and I think we see straight away a completely different breath of fresh air going through the football club, and we hope we can take that forward into tomorrow's match.
It's January, obviously. In terms of resources, what is available to your manager, and from a supporter's point of view out there, is he under pressure in any way to sell players from Kidderminster Harriers?
With regards to selling players for Kidderminster Harriers, no, there is no pressure to sell a player. Again, I think there is a lot of speculation regarding the financial situation within the club. I can categorically say there is no debt, albeit before the brewery loan that we have, which I think is goes down every year. It's about £40,000, £50,000. There are no other debts within the club. Clearly, it's not within our remit if people try to want to buy our players, and clearly we have some very good players, but ultimately we do not have to sell them, and any decision that's made will be made with the help of the manager, with a review to improve our playing squad going forward. Andy, the board, everybody within the club, I hope, wants to get promoted to the Football League as soon as possible. We want the best way to do that. Andy is obviously in a position, with his experience and his book of contacts and his knowledge of players at this level and above, will be in a position, if needed, to bring players in. But to be fair to Andy and the team, what they wanted to do, first of all, is give every member of the squad of Kidderminster Harriers now the opportunity to make this club what it could be. We know we have a very, very talented squad. We know there have been one or two issues with one or two players, but it's a clean slate, it's a clean piece of paper, and I think the response that Andy has had, he was very, very impressed when I spoke to him yesterday.
Fielding this question purely because it's one that is being asked, and we want to be direct about it. As we sit at the moment on Friday before the game against Salisbury, has there been any deal done for any player at Kidderminster Harriers to transfer to another?
No, is the answer to that one, clearly. We have had offers for players at Kidderminster Harriers from two clubs. We've had several offers from each of the clubs for the player. Whilst we sit here, there is no agreement that has been reached with the club, with the with the buying club or with our directors, and no decision by us is imminent at all. We're focused solely on the game tomorrow, and obviously a massive game on Tuesday for this club. That game on its own against Peterborough, that replay, is worth hundreds of thousands of pounds to Kidderminster Harriers, because I think it's 60 odd thousand pounds in prize money, and then potentially, if we were lucky enough to win that game, an absolutely massive weekend for us all to go to the Stadium of Light. So in answer to the question, no deals have been done. I know there's an awful amount of speculation. We know that clubs have made offers for the players, but we have not accepted any offer, and until that happens, this is our player. We're not a selling club. We're trying to get promoted to the Football League, and it is important that we keep the best players that we can to do that.
And if there are players who express an interest in being able to move from Kidderminster Harriers to other clubs, is there a way in which the club will not allow that to happen, but is there a process where that can be completed if it needs to be?
It takes three things to happen if a player if a player is going to be transferred for a club. There needs to be a club that wants to purchase a particular player. There needs to be agreement that the player would like to move to that club. And then there needs to be a desire for the club to actually want to sell the player at an agreed price to the buying club. Now, it needs three of those things to happen, and that's a very difficult thing to get right for all three people to be happy. But you also have, and I'm bringing into the mix the issues with agents, representatives, who have, probably they're not the favourite for any football club, because they're representing players, and it is in their interest to get, they're paid on performance by making players, get better clubs, and that's how they make their money. So it's always a very difficult situation. We don't need to sell a player. However, if a player wants to move from Kidderminster Harriers, then the deal has to be right in the eyes of Kidderminster Harriers before that can happen. If that isn't the case, if Kidderminster Harriers do not feel they're getting best value, that deal will not happen. We do not need to sell any player at Kidderminster Harriers for this season or next season at all.
So if the manager is able to complete January, perhaps by bringing in a few of his own players, bolstering the squad, but no players leave come the end of January, the club, yourself, the board of directors, everyone will be delighted with that, and that will be perfectly fine.
Absolutely. Categorically correct. We do not need to sell players. We have an option to bring players in, but we need all of the actions to go together to make that work.
Moving on, other speculation, other talk going around the future of the football club. Yourself, as chairman of the football club, are you either imminently or in the near future looking to leave your position or leave the football club?
No. I have to say that I've spoken to Pete at the Kidderminster Shuttle about this. I did not believe that it was appropriate for, and I didn't realise when I spoke that details that I was going to be looking to put, Ruth and I would put our house up for sale in the new year, January, would lead to people to help speculate that maybe we're moving on. We live in a large house. Our children have left home. There's two of us there. We're there half the time during the week, and I think it's agreed, or people have realised, that we do spend a good proportion of the summer away from the area at our house in Turkey. We will be looking to sell the house at some point, but we're looking to carry on staying in the area. We are committed to putting Kidderminster Harriers into the Football League and beyond. I feel that, yes, I will be spending time in Turkey in the summer. I run my business, which is, in turnover wise, much bigger than Kidderminster Harriers, and I do that by working in Turkey, and Ruth does working as well, and we feel able that we can do that to help run my business, certainly, and the football club moving forward, as that is the case. I've now You know, it's our treat, it's our responsibility, it's what we believe is right for us, and we've both worked extremely hard for that to happen. But that doesn't mean that we are leaving Kidderminster Harriers Football Club.
With that said, it probably answers the next question, but we'll answer it ask it for the sake of getting a straight answer. In terms of takeovers, consortiums, interest in the football club, imminently or otherwise, is the club about to be taken over or receive a change of ownership?
Categorically, no. Obviously, there is speculation regarding various people. I mean, Jed McCrory, who's been come to a few games at Kidderminster. I got to meet Jed through Paul West, who's a friend of his, who's a local ex-professional footballer and a local manager who I knew through football in the past. And they've come to a couple of games at Kidderminster. And Jed, with his experiences, and he's had a massive improvement and helped Swindon reduce their debts massively and kept them on an even keel, which is brilliant. Much bigger problems than we received at Kidderminster 3 years ago. And all that's ever happened is Jed has offered his help to help move the club forward if we required it. And we've spoken a number of times. He's been to a number of matches, and that's as far as it goes. He was offering his services to help the football club. There has never been an offer to take over Kidderminster Harriers Football Club in any way, shape or form, and there hasn't been by anybody else at all. It would be remiss of me and of the board of directors if that opportunity arose not to discuss it, because we all believe, as directors of Kidderminster Harriers Football Club, that we are custodians of this club. The speculation and people saying Mark Serrell's going to sell it, it isn't Mark Serrell's to sell. I own a percentage of the shares in the football club, but there are lots of other people. I think there's way over 600 shareholders in the football club. We are custodians. What we are trying to do is get involved with the football club to take it further than it has been before. At some point in the future, hopefully somebody, maybe a sheikh, or somebody will come along and take over Kidderminster Harriers, but there is nothing imminent, there is nothing that's going to happen in that sort of way at this present moment in time.
And you have answered some of this in your previous
sort
of words, but I want to ask the question specifically with a view to the financial state of the football club. What is the financial state of the football club? Is there any debt? Are there any outstanding issues? Is there trouble in any capacity?
No. I can't be clearer than that. As I've previously stated, the only debts within the football club are a long-term brewery loan that is paid off on a monthly basis that's been there for a long time. We've recently had a tax investigation. It's a routine tax investigation by the HM Revenue and Customs, and I'm pleased to say that after their investigation we have had to pay £350+ I think in unpaid tax relating to an issue that was before the previous board and I got involved with the club. There were some issues to do with that. So I'm really proud, and Joe Hancock's obviously as a well-respected accountant, he's very pleased that all our affairs are in order. We have no outstanding debts. I mean, I think the issues that people think the club need to sell, that it's got out of, I feel it's got out of control. I think, yes, as a football club, we run it as a business. Yes, we haven't got the financial incomes and the benefactorial incomes of other clubs within our league, but we're solvent. We're run to a budget. It's helped us that we've had a run in the FA Cup, but ultimately our aims have always been to try and get to the Football League.
And that will be without being to the detriment of the football club, obviously.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we run that. We've increased. I'd like to think, you know, in the period of time that we've been involved, Ruth and I, and the board of directors, that we've had a part in trying to increase the revenues within the club. I mean, the hospitality suite, I believe, is full again on Saturday against Salisbury. All of these incomes, all of the profit that's made from this goes into improving the club, improving the infrastructure, and more importantly, giving the manager the opportunity to improve his squad. So all of those things have made it, really, really positive. I'll also make a note that when I first got involved with the club, I think 2 or 3 weeks prior to my involvement, there was a game here against Gateshead where there was a gate that was under 1,000. Now, take into account that, and I don't know what the figures were, that we are averaging over 2,200 people here at Kidderminster Harriers at this current moment in time. That is a massive, massive way forward. And I have to say that Steve and what's happened and the way they play football has had a massive effect on that. But it's not just that. It's about everybody pulling together. That's all of the stakeholders working to help the football club. And I think we all need to be aware of that and take the club forward.
I hope we have been able to set the record straight in directly answering a number of these questions, but as clearly as you can, moving forward, what would be your last message to supporters coming and attending the game tomorrow to support Andy's team after, for them and for a number of us, what has been a difficult week and perhaps a bit of a turbulent week? It's
been a very difficult week for everybody. I mean, and it's been a very difficult week for the directors as well, certainly the staff within the football club, because there's been a lot of things aired, a lot of work that's been done. And I know you and I, Matt, were talking when we were I was trying to watch the Hereford versus Forest Green match on the TV last night, and like we were still talking and things going on. And I want people to understand that the directors of the football club sometimes have to make very difficult decisions, but they make those decisions in what they feel strongly are in the best interests of Kidderminster Harriers Football Club. Obviously, not all of the information can ever be brought out to why that happens, because there are obviously confidential issues, business issues that have to stay that way. But there is nobody that wants to get into the Football League more than the directors, more than me, more than the staff, because we feel that over the last 3 years we've worked extremely hard to try and make that happen to us, and we're trying to do that. Personally, I try to be as clear as I possibly can, as open as I possibly can, and I urge people that if they feel there's something that I haven't asked, something they haven't got an answer to their question, to again contact me through Chairman or speak to me at a game. I have no problem at all with that. I want people to feel comfortable that what we're trying to do is make the club, give it the best opportunity to get into the Football League. With regards to tomorrow, I think it's only fair that I think everybody just wants to wait for the game to start, because I think we'd all feel much better that the players can respond in the way that they best can. Let's hope we can get that 3 points. I hope that crowd, as they have been all season, are buzzing, are shouting, flags waving for the benefit of the team, because this isn't the fault of the players, the new manager or his team. It's nobody's fault. The decision has been made. We'd like to get back together. Let's get back onto the football, and let's help cheer Kidderminster Harriers onwards and upwards into the Football League.